Hey everyone, this is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Hope you guys are doing well. It is a new moon Monday, so we're going to be taking a look at the new moon in the sign of Virgo today and 5 features of this lunation cycle to keep in mind for the month ahead. So that's our goal for today. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe. We are trying to get to 70,000 subscribers on the channel. I had the goal of the fall equinox in mind, and we have doubled our subscriber total per month since we started in July. But we have a ways to go, about 2,000 more subscribers that we need in the next month. Will we get there? I don't know, but we can see if we can get there. If we don't get there by the fall equinox, we'll just see if we can get there by Halloween or whatever. So anyway, thank you all to have subscribed. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, we appreciate it when you do. It helps us grow our business and our community. Transcripts can be found on the website, nightlightastrology.com. I want to take you over there to promote a couple of things. One is next week, the registration for our first year course, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, our first year program, 1-year course in Ancient Hellenistic Astrology, will be on sale. The sale and registration begins on September 9th, and it will run through October 15th. So you will have a little over a full month to take advantage of the sale price. And then the normal price will be in effect. And of course, we have need-based tuition. I will start promoting that next week on Monday when the registration and sale begins. So if you want to go over and take a look at the course and see what's there. And remember, if you're absolutely brand new, you can also check out the primer course that we have, Astrology for Beginners, which will set you up for the first year course. And the Astrology for Beginners is all recorded. First year course is by webinar, but you can also move at your own pace because everything is recorded. So hopefully we will see some of you there. In the meantime, if you go to the events page, click on live talks, you're going to see that we recently did the talk on the 8th house. And you can still, it says register now, but it's for sale. So you can just click on that to purchase it or go to the shop page. And then in September on the 19th, I'm doing a talk called Venus's 12 Love Languages, Falling in Love Through the Zodiac. This is a webinar that will be about the story of love that Venus tells in our birth charts by virtue of the sign she is in. And I think you will find this talk really deep and engaging, helping you understand your natal Venus placement, or maybe the Venus placement of whoever you're in a relationship with or other people that you know. So a great one for students of all levels. So check those things out on the website and hope to see you in classes soon. Again, the sale for our year 1 program begins next week. Okay, so on that note, let us now turn our attention to the real-time clock, where we will take a look at what's coming up here in this lunation cycle. Get my real-time clock set up here. Okay, there we go. All right. Here we are. So we will see that on today, September 2nd, Monday. And let me just get my little epic pen set up. You can see the sun and the moon coming together here. The moon conjoining the sun in the sign of Virgo. So this is happening today. And if you want to track out the exact time, let's just do that real quick so you can get a feel for the exact time of the new moon. So that's going to come through this evening. I think the 2 planets get together at exactly almost 9:00 p.m. Central Time today. And so that would be 10 or so Eastern and 7 or so Pacific in the United States. So what are some of the key features of this new moon cycle? I'm going to point them out and then we're going to talk about them. So there are 5 key features I want to talk about today that will prepare us for this lunar cycle, which, by the way, includes a lunar eclipse. Hold on just one second. I forgot something. There we go. So there are 5 key features. One is that this new moon opposes Saturn. So you'll notice that the moon and sun are moving into an opposition with Saturn. So this lunation cycle has the tension of a sun-Saturn opposition, which has some very specific delineations that we're going to get into today, and some general themes that are, broadly applicable for probably everyone. The specific themes and the universal themes are pretty common for all archetypal delineations. You'll have some kind of broad themes that you'll see, consistently, and then very specific themes that are, going to show up in some people's lives, but not everybody's life. So we'll look at some of those with Sun Saturn. and the lunation cycle opposing Saturn in general. And then we can also see that at the time of this new moon, one of the new moon signatures, which is very important, new moons plant a seed. So whatever else is happening at the time of the new moon is part of the signature of the cycle. And we see a Mars-Neptune square. Mars-Neptune square at the outset of the lunation cycle tones the cycle ahead. So we're going to pay attention to that. Venus is crossing the south node at the time of the new moon. Here, I use the mean node, but whether you use the mean or true node, Venus is crossing the south node in Libra in her own domicile, which is nice. But Venus south node contact during this lunar cycle is also very important. Now, we have Mars moving into Cancer. Just shortly after the beginning of this lunar cycle, if we move this forward just a little bit to Wednesday of this week, we're seeing that between Tuesday and Wednesday, Mars will ingress into Cancer, the sign of its fall. A little bit of a tense place for Mars and Cancer. We've spent some time talking about Mars and Cancer already, but one of the main reasons this is a big deal is not only because it's a major dignity change for a slower moving planet at the outset of the cycle, as the new moon is just appearing in the sky, and it is something, but it's because Mars will also retrograde and stay in Cancer for about 6 out of the next 8 months. So we have a very long period of Mars in Cancer that we're now just going to become, we're coming into contact with. We're going to start getting to know it. So anyway, and then the final piece here is that this lunation cycle culminates into a lunar eclipse. A lunar eclipse that is Neptunian. Here is the lunar eclipse halfway through the cycle, right? The full moon that brings the fruits of the cycle to bear. And the full moon is closely engaged with Neptune. So it's a lunar eclipse conjoined with Neptune. That's very powerful. That's a super powerful full moon there. So we have the cycle starts off as Saturnian, and it culminates in a very Neptunian moment that is also a lunar eclipse. So a really big cycle and a lot to unpack here. Let's go back to the beginning and talk about some of these key features and what to watch for. And again, I'll try to be topical and universal. Topical means here's something super specific. Universal would mean something that's very broad and general. So when we have an opposition to Saturn, Virgo, and Pisces, one of the things that we're talking about is the very Virgoan quality of purity and conscientiousness, diligence, meticulousness, a care and attention to detail, a concern that things are done right, that things are good and useful, and that kind of conscientiousness of Virgo that will be a big part of this cycle. And to locate where that is in your life, look at the whole sign house of Virgo in your birth chart. There's a real concern with doing the right thing, becoming good or proficient and being useful and helpful, demonstrating that you are worthy because you have valuable things that you can provide in service to other people. These are all Virgoan archetypes that will be very much at play in this cycle. Especially also just like general questions about goodness, rightness, properness, purity, highly valuable things for Virgo. Then on the other hand, we have this applying opposition to Saturn and Pisces. Saturn and Pisces, among other things, may be our own limitations or failures, our weaknesses, and coming into contact them. Despite my desire to be good or to develop skills or to become proficient at something or to be useful, I am reaching a personal limit. I have ineptitudes, or I have, there's something I lack, or there's something I can't do. There's some sense of weakness or failure, ineptitude. And when these two planets meet, there's one of two ways that you can generally see things going. One is the need for forgiveness. So the need for forgiveness is like, look, you're doing your best, and your best is good enough. Forgive yourself, accept yourself, surrender to the fact that you're not perfect or that you don't have it all together. And that could be a real theme this cycle on the universal level. On the other hand, sometimes when we meet with those weaknesses, they give us an opportunity to do better. Right. So sometimes when we meet with personal shortcomings, limits, and we have to look in the mirror and go, I can do better than this. And that's how we usually level up in anything. You reach a plateau or you reach a weakness in, a skill you're learning, and you just kind of dig your heels in and get better at it, and you push through and don't allow excuses or feeling sorry for yourself to get in the way. And then other times in life, we meet those weaknesses or failures or ineptitudes and we say, it's okay. It's okay if I can't get past this. It's okay if I'm doing 90%, not 100, or you know what I mean? And there's some need to just accept where we are and who we are and what the shortcomings or failures are. Now we can take either of those things and put them out into the world in other relationships. And this is key because remember that one of the other things that's happening is Venus is crossing the South Node in Libra, which means that there's some level of crystallization of insight, karma, wisdom, and past experiences that are blossoming, and we're meeting like crossing a kind of karmic threshold with respect to certain key relationships in our life, whether those are work relationships or romantic relationships. And so in those relationships, are we ready to just let people be where they're at? Are we ready to let people have weaknesses and shortcomings and failures? And is it time to forgive and accept and let go? Or on the other hand, are certain failures or shortcomings or maybe disproportionate needs or values that are being brought to the table? Maybe the exchanges in certain relationships are not they're not equal. And so we're looking and we're saying like these shortcomings in other people or their failure to bring something valuable, etc., is leading me to a point where I say, I need to do better. You need to do better, or this relationship is over. Or someone saying to us, hey, we need to do better, or someone may be ready to move on and not give us another chance. Or, we might look and say, look, there's a history here and we've reached an expiration date for this relationship. Just a very simple, we're not going to be able to do much more than what we're doing. We have to let this go so that we can move into a better space where we can do better. Do you see how it comes back to that sense of, can we do better here? Or are we being too hard or punitive or unforgiving or puritanical? So those Virgoan characteristics paired with the Saturn and Pisces, which either forgives people's shortcomings or in meeting them recognizes that something needs to change. So those are key features of this lunation cycle that I would say broadly apply to things that we're reaching a limit with within ourselves, or things that we're reaching a limit with in key relationships. And we're either saying it's time for me to drop my expectations a little. And that's relieving for us. It might be relieving for other people, or maybe I need to heighten them and expect more. That's a crossroads that is implied by a lunation cycle that's opposite Saturn. So I'm kind of jumping around here. The other thing that's important that's informing all of this is the fact that Mars is squaring Neptune. At the outset of the cycle, that Mars-Neptune square brings to mind things like, what is my larger mission? What is my larger purpose? And then how do I need to get better to accomplish it? Or how do I need to, turn up the heat? You know what I mean? Like I need to burn off my excuses. I need to take it to the next level. I need to continue improving. And I've met a limit or a weakness, but I'm being informed, Mars Neptune, by a higher calling, a higher mission to be victorious in some larger visionary quest, right? So that sense of ideal use of will, perseverance, and victory is informing the cycle. However, Mars Neptune can also refer to impotence and weakness and failure of the will. And so again, it's like in my big, large mission, am I failing? Am I encountering weakness? And do I have to, kind of tighten my belt and figure out how to get better and work through limitations and the feeling of ineptitude? Mars Neptune at the same time that moon cycles opening in opposition to Saturn. Or am I pushing too hard all the time? Are my standards too high? Am I in relentless pursuit of victory when what I need to be in is relentless pursuit of self-acceptance and forgiveness, compassionate surrender and release of all these missions and expectations? And we're going to be at a moment where probably one of those two options is the right answer for us. No, it's time to transcend. It's time to go through that limit. No more excuses, like that. It's amazing to me how predictable these kinds of things are in our lives, set aside the astrology, right? I mean, like the astrology is just mirroring things that are very natural for human beings. Um, I have been for my sort of my spiritual practice for several years, like in the past several years, has been really physical. So I've been doing a lot of working out, a lot of resistance training, a lot of cardio, and of course I do like one solid day a week of like yoga, stretching, and so it used to be all yoga, right? So it's very interesting to have these different seasons of my life. But anyway, my long-winded point here is that I get at the gym. It's like there are these moments where you can see people flooding into the gym, like a couple days after the holidays. Whatever holiday there is, you eat a bunch and then people flood into the gym. Just looking really determined, and especially obviously, in the new year, like New Year's resolutions, like everyone's in the gym, and there's these familiar periods where you see people and you start going like, yeah, yeah, we it works like this for us. We go through these periods of relaxation and enjoyment and indulgence, and then we go, "Oh my God, I have to pull everything back together and like go. It's time to go." And I feel like in essence, with the signature of a new moon in Virgo opposite Saturn and Pisces, well, Mars is squaring Neptune. There's a question right now as to, that whole pattern in our life of do I relax too much and then overcompensate and go crazy? Maybe there's a middle path too, right? Maybe there's something more moderate so that we don't have to swing between extremes. So like, what does consistency look like? That might be a question for this moon cycle. How do I make my efforts toward my goals, my health, my ambitions, my ideals, that kind of driven part of myself? How do I make it something that's just a little bit more steady and constant, as opposed to feeling like I go through cycles of like tremendous relaxation to the point of excuse making and falling off the wagon, and like, and then on the other hand, I swing to extremes of hyperproductivity. Like those are tensions that are also kind of built into this cycle. So I just watch for them and ask yourself, again, there's three options. Do I need to pull my shit together? Do I need to relax? Those are two. And then maybe the third one is, if I tend to vacillate between these extremes of, indulgence, relaxation, and hard work and productivity, maybe there's a middle path. Maybe I need more daily consistency in terms of holding that tension. Anyway, I wouldn't be surprised if these particular dynamics also appear as the front and center values to be explored or evaluated somehow in relationships with Venus crossing the South Node in Libra. Now, the other thing that I find really interesting about this lunar cycle is Mars is moving into the sign of Cancer. That to me is super interesting because we've got Mars in Cancer for such a long period of time. And what I want to throw in here, because I genuinely don't know how this will manifest, but I'm really curious. And what I would say is that this cycle is going to include some real emotional heat around things that are vulnerable: home, family, marriage, domestic life, our feelings of emotional security, family drama, family karma, family history, mothers, women, children, the vulnerable, those who are in need of mothering or care, emotional advocacy, and also emotional intensity, and sometimes emotional drama. And the potential for division within close-knit emotional bonds, with whether that's family members or extended family. So the other thing that strikes me as interesting is that one of the very topical signifiers of Sun opposite Saturn and the new moon opposite Saturn at the beginning of the cycle would be the death of solar figures, or the mortality or limits of solar figures. that's a dad, right? That's, for the most part, in families, that's going to be dad, grandfather. Men who have had some degree of fame potentially passing away would be a very mundane prediction that one could make with anytime the sun is opposite Saturn. A lunation cycle in which it's opposite Saturn could bring the topic of the paternal or male wisdom or male leadership, something like that, into the spotlight. Of course, archetypal, it doesn't have to be literally male, but you get the idea. Now, when you combine that with Mars in Cancer as a part of this cycle, it starts to look like, wow, stuff with moms and dads could really pop during this lunar cycle. You got the drama of Mars in the sign of the moon, while the cycle starts with the sun and moon opposite Saturn. So the death and rebirth and transformation of parenting strategies, relationships between parents and children, relationships between mom and dad, and drama within the family as now a theme that looks like it could have a very kind of parental dimension to it. And then finally, so those are some specific things, right? You may or may not notice them, but I would watch more broadly for all of those general Mars and Cancer themes. And check out the video I did last week on Mars and Cancer if you want kind of a deeper breakdown of that one. But now finally, things culminate with a Neptunian lunar eclipse. To me, the fact that the sun is also going to oppose Neptune around this time speaks to the fact that we are probably reaching, by the midpoint of the cycle, those tensions that started off as, do I buckle my boots, or however that saying is, buckle my belt and, kind of clamp down and get more serious and work through a limitation and move past a weakness and transcend, all this kind of stuff. There's like a little bit of a machismo. Like, not going to be limited by this pathetic excuse, you kind of got something like that. But the Neptune side of things is very much like forgive, accept, surrender, release. And so I wonder if by the midpoint of the cycle, we aren't reaching a point of acceptance, of needing to accept things the way they are, or of finding some way of flowing in our efforts as opposed to constantly battling with ourselves. But the Neptunian signature around the lunar eclipse to me suggests otherworldliness, romance, imagination, healing, surrender, acceptance as major themes that are sort of implied at the new moon because of the opposition to Saturn and Pisces. But the emphasis on a lunar eclipse in Pisces with Neptune speaks to me of healing, surrender, release, acceptance, forgiveness, compassion. And remember that lunar eclipses bring long histories to their blossoming point karmically. It's like every full moon is like a karmic blossoming hotspot. But a lunar eclipse is a karmic blossoming that has 9 years, 18 years of history behind it, karmically. So, wow, that's a lot that's coming up around themes like forgiveness, mysticism, illusion, fantasy. We're going to spend more time with that, of course, when we get closer to it, and I'll do a more robust breakdown, a robust exploration of the lunar eclipse. But for now, what I want to say is that Neptunian signature suggests to me that we have to come to terms with various limits, weaknesses, and whether we work through them to transcend them or whether we accept them, some degree of flow and acceptance and forgiveness and surrender are necessary and will be a peak part of this cycle. We just have to accept that things are the way they are if we're going to move forward, if we're going to move past something, if we're going to get better at something. There's some level of charitable, compassionate acceptance that wants to be a part of this cycle. That's how I see it. And I could see that crossing into the decisions we have to make, the Venus South Node decisions that we have to make in relationships, the difficult emotional dynamics coming up around family or parents with Mars and Cancer, and so on. So anyhow, I hope that these themes have been useful for you. And we will be back together tomorrow. This week, just like a little touching on some of what is coming this week here. We're going to spend a little bit more time with Venus and the South Node in Libra, which will be happening later this week. And then we are also going to be looking at Mars Neptune a little bit more. So those are a few things. And then we'll also be taking a look at Mercury square to Uranus, final square coming out of its retrograde and direct motion now for the third time. Mercury will square Uranus. So couple of interesting things to explore as the week goes on. And as we are now in eclipse season officially, we will start unpacking that Pisces and Virgo access a little bit as a preview for the moving of the nodes, because this is an out of sign eclipse, but that gives us an opportunity to start reflecting on the meaning of eclipses in Pisces and Virgo generally. Okay, that's it for today. I hope you're having a good one. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye.